A California Democrat city councilwoman has been caught on video doing something once considered unthinkable. Yet now she's asking voters to send her as a representative to Washington, D.C. And the last thing on earth that the national Democrat establishment wants is for you to see these videos. Make sure to stick them to the very end of this video, because by the time we're done, you're going to see the shocking behavior with your own eyes, and you're going to understand what's happening in a completely different light and why it has massive implications for the future of the entire Democrat Party. Hey gang, it's me, Dr. Steve, your Patriot Professor, here to help you make sense of the madness with breaking news and analysis you're not going to get anywhere else. So you know what to do. Make sure to smack that bell and subscribe button. We've got a story breaking out of California that is absolutely jaw-dropping, and I want to be very clear from the start here that this is not a doctored video that you're about to see. This is not some out-of-context clip that's been misrepresented. This behavior has been corroborated and verified, and unfortunately for her, repeated numerous times.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands.
Yeah, we don't need to see any more. I mean, that's about as vile as it gets for an elected official. That was Sacramento City Council member Mai Vang. And that was footage from Sacramento City Council and district meetings alike, where she turned her back on the American flag and refused to pledge allegiance. And again, she's done this publicly several times. Mai Vang has reportedly held her seat since 2020, and she's now running for California's 7th congressional district, seeking to unseat longtime Democrat incumbent Representative Doris Matsui, who's held her seat for over 20 years. And apparently the race is neck and neck, with the primary set for June 2nd. So as it turns out, the voters of Sacramento have made her a serious contender for a seat in the United States Congress. Now, the good news is that over Memorial Day weekend, a series of those videos resurfaced, like the ones you just saw. They went viral, and they've set the political world on fire. Multiple clips from Sacramento City Council meetings showed Vang turning aside or going completely silent while her fellow council members openly recited the Pledge of Allegiance toward the American flag. Vang is repeatedly seen standing with eyes downcast while everyone around her honored the flag. She did not quietly abstain. She did not simply stand still. She physically turned her back on the flag of the United States of America. Now, here's where it gets even more remarkable, because Mai Vang did not stay quiet about this. She actually published a Facebook post in February of 2025 defending and celebrating her decision not to recite the pledge. Quote, "This is exactly why I chose not to recite the Pledge of Allegiance during every council meeting. As much as I love this country, yeah, right, I use that moment to ground myself, to center our communities, and remind myself of the injustices and harm that continue to affect so many, both locally and across the globe, under this nation's influence." And then she continued, "We must not tune out. They want us to become numb to the realities we see in the news," whatever the hell that means. "It's part of the plan to keep us complacent, but instead we resist." And she concluded with the hashtag Free Palestine. Now, again, make no mistake. The establishment Democrat Party, those responsible for the success of the party on the national stage, they are literally flipping out over this. This was the last video they wanted going viral during Memorial Day weekend of all days. Sacramento political consultant Steve Maviglio, a Democrat, told the New York Post that Vang's actions were completely disrespectful to veterans, their families. He said they were vile, they're radically extreme, they have no place in the Democrat Party. But it gets even worse, because we're now learning that Vang is the daughter of Hmong refugees who fled Laos after the Vietnam War, after the CIA recruited Hmong communities to fight alongside American forces during that conflict, which left many Hmong families displaced, persecuted, and violently targeted after the U.S. withdrawal from Southeast Asia. So what that means is that her family's very survival, their escape from a communist government that wanted them dead, was made possible in large part by the very country she turns her back on. This is the detail that hits the hardest, and it's the detail that begins to make real sense only when you understand the ideology at work here. I'm not showing you these videos solely to make you mad. I want you to understand the most powerful ideology infesting the woke left, where it comes from, but even more importantly, where it's going. But first, if you're suffering from joint pain, it's not random. Doctors from the Wellness Center say it's your body stuck in a constant state of inflammation. If you deal with arthritis, you know it's not just a little joint pain. It can feel like constant stiffness and swelling and discomfort that makes everyday movement harder. Arthritis is driven by inflammation that never really shuts off, keeping your joints irritated, swollen, and in constant pain. That's why researchers are taking a closer look at ivermectin. Originally developed as an antiparasitic, ivermectin has been used safely for decades. Now, emerging research suggests it may help calm the body's inflammatory response, supporting less swelling, less joint breakdown, and more comfortable movement. The wellness company offers American-made ivermectin tablets, doctor prescribed and delivered right to your door after a simple online intake form. Now is your opportunity to experience its anti-inflammatory potential. Go to twc.health/Turley and use code Turley to save $45 off plus free shipping. That's twc.health/Turley. To understand why Mai Vang does what she does, why a woman whose family was rescued by America chooses to publicly disrespect its most foundational symbol of unity, you need to understand an intellectual framework that's quietly moved from the universities into mainstream Democrat politics over the past decade. And it's exactly the same framework that we've been tracking in the rise of figures like Zoran Mamdani in New York City and Ilhan Omar in Minneapolis and the like. And it's what's known as third worldism. Third worldism. It's not communism per se. It's not Islamism per se. It is a coherent post-colonial ideological system that American political institutions are only now beginning to grapple with in its full maturity. Third worldist theory is rooted in a binary that's common to all cultural Marxist ideologies, a binary between oppressor and oppressed. That's what you got to get. That's where it all starts. It is a binary or dialectic between oppressor versus oppressed. All cultural Marxist thought is grounded in this binary between a victim group and a victimizer group, a persecutor group and a persecuted group. That's the antithesis that drives all of human history. There's always a culture that is evil and oppressive, and a culture that is good and kind, but is being exploited and oppressed by that evil, oppressive culture. For third worldists, the fundamental evil on the planet is Western civilization. I'll say that again because that's so. Once you've got that binary, then you got to figure out what groups do you put into that binary, right? The fundamental evil on the planet for third worldists is always and always shall be Western civilization. Western civilization is the permanent, irredeemable oppressor, the white supremacist, patriarchal, Christian, persecutor, and colonizer. And the third world represents not merely the victim of the colonizing oppression, but the most active resistors, the brave and noble freedom fighters who are valiantly rising up against this oppression. And since God is always on the side of the oppressed, We too, if we're to be on the side of justice and equity, we must side with these third worldists as well, and we must actively resist Western civilization. This is literally verbatim what this Mai Vang wrote on her Facebook page. This is why she can stand at a Veterans Day ceremony, a ceremony honoring the very men and women who gave their lives for this country and for her family, for that matter, and turn her back on the American flag without apparent conflict or shame. Because within the third worldist framework, the American military does not represent courage, sacrifice, or freedom. It represents empire. It represents the oppressor. And to show reverence to that symbol of empire, even for 30 seconds at a city council meeting, is to participate in a legitimizing ritual for a system she has been ideologically trained to view as fundamentally unjust. Again, her Facebook post confirms this framing precisely, where she said she uses the moment of the pledge to remind herself of the injustices and harms that continue to affect so many, both locally and across the globe, under this nation's influence. This nation is unjust. That, ladies and gentlemen, is the essence of cultural Marxism. She is a bona fide Marxist, as is Mamdani, as is Ilhan Omar, as is AOC, and a growing number of Democrats across the country whose number one goal is to disassemble this nation and remake it in their cultural Marxist image. And when this woman appends Free Palestine to that post, she's not making a foreign policy statement about a disputed territory. She's signaling her placement of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict within exactly this same binary framework. Once Israel is categorized as a settler colonial extension of Western power and American empire, the nature of the conflict is already predetermined. The violence becomes not just excusable, it becomes a form of righteous resistance. The October 7th massacre and the Pledge of Allegiance become part of the same moral universe, looked at through the same ideological lens. One is oppressor, one is resisting the oppressor, and the job of the progressive is to stand with the resistance and against the empire. The facts of the situation don't matter, only the narrative. And keep in mind who's embracing that narrative. We now know that the majority of Mamdani's voters in New York were not born in the United States. Now, the good news is that third worldism's fundamental weakness is the same weakness that afflicts every totalizing ideology built on a fixed moral binary. It's simply unjustifiable and therefore intellectually self-defeating. This idiot councilwoman cannot explain why Hmong refugees fled communist persecution into American arms. It can't explain why millions risk their lives every year to enter the empire that's supposedly so wicked and that this ideology condemns. They can't explain why illegal refugees here in the United States protest their deportation by flying the flags of the very countries they left. It's a fundamentally incoherent, self-defeating ideology that'll go the way of all incoherent, self-defeating ideologies. It will take its place on the ash heap of history right alongside the Soviet Union that preceded it. Its contradictions are too glaring, its moral inversions too offensive to ordinary human intuition, and its political candidates too extreme for the actual voters they seek to represent. That said, the march of third worldist ideology through American institutions did not happen overnight, and it will not be reversed overnight. But it starts with naming exactly what we're actually dealing with. It starts with understanding that turning your back on the flag at a Veterans Day ceremony is not a neutral act of personal conscience. It's an offensively vile ideological declaration. And then it continues with voters who are informed, engaged, and unwilling to stay complacent. California deserves better. America deserves better. And it starts now. Gang, the news is not slowing down, and neither are we. The best thing you can do right now is get on the Patriot Alert newsletter so you are never the last to know when something big breaks. Scan the QR code on your screen and sign up today. Stay ahead, stay informed, stay free.